Alright, so this video is going to be about Jabari Panther. She's a really cool champion who can do a ton of bleed damage, and she also has some other cool utility as well. Her core mechanic is called the Hunt and Huntress Charges. Huntress Charges are those purple icons that you see underneath Jabari Panther's name. Once you hit 10 of those, you go into the Hunt, and the Hunt is where you're going to do the vast majority of your damage. You can build Huntress Charges in a couple of ways. The first way is by hitting into a stunned opponent. That'll give you 1. The next way is by hitting into an ensnared opponent. We'll see that later in the fight. Ensnare is a debuff off of the SP1. The third way is by launching the SP3. That's going to give you 3 charges, and those are going to stick around until the end of the fight. The SP3 also causes the opponent to be stunned the next time you go into the Hunt. So what we're going to do here is build up to 7 charges. The SP3 is going to give us 3 more. Because we use a special to get into the Hunt, we're also going to get a huge Fury. If you use a special within about a half a second of entering the Hunt, you're going to get a huge Fury, and that's going to help you do big damage. So coming out of this SP3, we will have a Fury, the opponent will be stunned, and we're going to be in the Hunt. You can see the countdown timer underneath Jabari Panther when we come out. During this time, we're going to try to build up as many bleeds as we can, then launch a heavy to double them. It doesn't quite double, but every single one has a chance to double. So you can see we just went from 9 to 15. We're doing a huge amount of bleed damage here. And now I'm going to launch the SP1 to help me get back. You can see I currently have 3 charges. Those 3 charges came off the SP3, and they're just going to be permanent. You can stack up to 6 of those that way. Now that I'm hitting into an ensnared opponent, I'm building up more charges. When I get to 9, I'm going to try to parry and launch the SP2. Using a special to get into the Hunt gives me a big Fury, and that's basically going to end the fight here. There is one last thing I want to mention, which is the Elsa Bloodstone synergy. That is one more way to get Huntress Charges. That synergy allows you to get Huntress Charges by intercepting, which is cool. It's kind of nice, especially if you can't parry in a fight, but that's not the biggest deal. And as we wait for these stats at the end of this screen, just remember that these are only the last 10 seconds of the fight, so no big deal, but here we have over 50,000 bleed damage in the last 10 seconds of this fight. Now we're going to go into a fight that lets you show off some of her utility. So this fight is going to have Icarus, which is going to give us Furies, but also Degenerations, and it's also going to have Energy Adoption, Bleed, and Poison, I think. In the last fight, you may have noticed those green charges. Those green charges are cool because this is the way that Jabari Panther purifies debuffs off of her. As she's attacking, you basically can't place debuffs on her. That includes stuns, that includes any of these debuffs that come back on you as a result of energy adoption or biohazard or any of those sorts of things. It also affects stuns, it also affects any debuffs that would be placed on you during this time. So, in addition to purifying all of those things, it also gives you Huntress Charges. So it will give you 3 Huntress Charges every time you purify a debuff in this way, but it only works while you're below 5. So usually what you'll end up seeing is you'll get to 6 or 7, and then this will stop being effective. This ends up being a really quick fight, so I'm just going to get into it, but all of the same things are happening here. This is going to be Icarus, so we're going to get Furies. When we get to 10, those Furies are going to turn into Degenerations, but those Degenerations are going to fall right off of us. So now we have the Elsa synergy, so we're getting Huntress Charges in all sorts of ways. We also have all these Furies, and you can see those Degenerations keep trying to place, but we also are purifying them with those Cleanse Charges all the time. Now, it's not always working, but it's mostly working, and because of the way Icarus works, they just fall off as soon as they get reapplied. So I'm up to 7 here, going to build up to the SP3 with all these Furies and launch it. If this didn't kill him, which it's going to, I would have a stunned opponent and a big Fury. I'd do the same thing where I stack up a bunch of bleeds and launch a heavy to double all of those bleeds. But it's over, so whatever. This next fight is Invisible Woman. It's also an energy adoption lane, but in this I wanted to show off some of her mechanics against missing opponents. So missing an opponent or being evaded by an opponent will give you 3 charges. That's a nice way to build up. And while you're in the hunt, you cannot miss or be evaded, which is a really nice ability, especially against someone like Invisible Woman. This fight's going to go pretty quickly, but the point is, in addition to building up faster against these debuffs, she's also going to build up faster against missing opponents. The same rules apply for missing as apply for debuffs. That is, you can only gain them up to 5. If you're above 5, you're not going to gain charges from missing or being evaded. So right off the bat, we have 3 charges. I think that's because of hitting into the miss, although I'm not entirely sure. You can see we really got to 6 very quickly. It's going to take a little bit longer to get all the way up to 10 from here. We have these cleanse charges on us. Because of the Killmonger synergy, I have 2 of them instead of just 1. I'm going to wait until I can throw my SP2 to get into the hunt, and then this fight's just going to be over. So watch here as I go into the hunt, and she's invisible, but it doesn't matter because I can't miss while I'm in the hunt. Another thing here, I do have the Apocalypse synergy, which gave me a big precision based on the number of debuffs on the opponent when I launch a special. It's cool, you don't need it, but it's pretty nice for both Apocalypse and Jabari Panther. Once again, we have 70,000 bleed damage in the last 10 seconds of the fight. That's nothing unusual for her. This is just something that Jabari Panther does all the time. The last thing about her is her ensnare debuff. I didn't show this off, but her ensnare debuff also prevents evade, so she has an evade counter off of her special 1. It's not going to make her the best evade champion there is, but it's nice utility. So basic rotations, get yourself to 10 charges, launch a special, watch the opponent melt. You can do that by launching the SP2, or in longer fights, if you need to build up persistent charges over time, you can launch the SP3, and that'll make it faster to get back into the hunt the second time. Now, I'm sure everyone's wondering, does she need to be awakened? The answer is really no. She gets an extended duration on the hunt. She also gets these unstoppable charges very similar to Mole Man or Killmonger while she's in the hunt. They're useful, but they're not the end-all be-all. It's not going to make her. But the extra time on the hunt is nice. You can build up more bleeds and then double them and bigger bleeds. I hope you've enjoyed this, and good luck with Jabari Panther.